You just had an engine failure at 1,000 feet after takeoff. What are you gonna do? So the first thing that you're gonna do is figure out, can you get this engine back? And that needs to be quick, snappy. You need to have your memory items down. This needs to be almost like second nature. Get that mixture in, get those magnetos to where they need to be, check your fuel shut off, and swap tanks trying to get that engine back. If you can get that engine back, then you need to obviously take the airplane back to the pavement. You need to get down on the ground because it just died. All right. Now, if you can't get the engine back, obviously we need to figure out somewhere to go. So there's 3 different metrics or measuring points, whatever you want to call them, when it comes to deciding where to go if you had an engine failure after takeoff. Obviously, if you just took off and there's pavement, land. Just land. Like, these airplanes generally come to a stop within about 600 to 1,000 feet and generally only take about 1,000 feet to take off. So if you're taking off a 4,000-foot runway, you've probably got plenty of pavement left to come to a stop. And even if you don't, smashing into the fence at the end of the runway or at the end of the airport is usually a better option than taking an airplane with no engine up into the air, because you're just going to end up stalling. Now, at about a 500-foot mark, 500 feet above the ground, we can start deciding, all right, there's trees, there's power lines. Is there a field out past this runway that I can decide? But try to keep it within about 30 degrees of your runway center line, because if we start cranking and banking, we're going to lose a bunch of vertical lift, making us accelerate to the crash site. That's the last thing we want to do, is accelerate to a crash site. Now, when you get above 1,000 feet, this is when you can start evaluating on whether or not you can make it back to the runway. Anything below 1,000 feet is referred to as an impossible turn, and many people have tried it, and many people have not succeeded. Some people disagree with that statement. Those people don't run flight schools. But anything above 1,000 feet, if your best case scenario, things like you were climbing at your best angle of climb, you had a long runway that you were taking off from, there's not a lot of obstacles at the end of the runway, that 1,000-foot mark is when you can start evaluating on whether or not you're going to turn back for the runway. But here's the thing. Before you ever got in that airplane, before you ever applied full power, before you ever released that parking brake or released your brakes to start rolling down the runway, you have evaluated the elevation, the trees, the obstacles, the power lines, the buildings, to have a plan on where you're going at these marks. So make sure you are comfortable and aware of your surroundings at the airport that you're training at or the airports that you're flying to, because nobody really plans on an engine failure. So just make sure you have a plan if one happens.